We begin now with Marines who are now positioned in the Los Angeles area. President Trump deployed 700 Marines to L.A. and another 2,000 National Guards troops to L.A. in order to protect federal buildings and employees amid the ongoing protests against ICE operations. Now, that brings the total number of National Guards troops to 4,000 in the county. The Pentagon says deploying the support to Los Angeles will cost $134 million. And as the additional military support arrives, President Trump told members of the press he isn't ruling out the use of the 1807 Insurrection Act in Los Angeles.
Take a look at what's happening. I mean, I could tell you there were certain areas of Los Angeles that you could have called it an insurrection. It was terrible. But these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid troublemakers. They get money.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass addressed the administration authorizing the use of Marines and the National Guard during a press briefing just a short time ago. Take a listen.
Absolutely unnecessary. People have asked me, what are the Marines going to do when they get here? That's a good question. I have no idea. The National Guard that are here now have one assignment, and that is to protect one building, which is the federal building downtown. The second building, which is the federal building on Westwood Boulevard. And as far as I know, nothing has happened in Westwood at all. So this was not needed. The administration would...
All right, there's a lot of ground to get to. We have a panel of guests covering the protests. Our Nikole Killion is at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, tracking the president's response. But we begin with CBS News correspondent Elise Preston, who is with us on the ground from Los Angeles. Elise, good to see you again. You've been covering this for days now. What's the situation on the ground today? And compare it to what you've seen over the days of coverage.
Well, Tom, right now it is pretty calm here in downtown L.A. We're right outside of the federal building that Mayor Karen Bass was talking about in that soundbite. And it has been calm. You can see that traffic is actually flowing in front of the federal building. That was not the case yesterday. Officers were blocking off this roadway. And today, just within the last half hour, we're starting to see more people, more Angelenos, kind of trickle down to this area. There's actually like a marker that's right behind me. We watched someone tag it. We're starting to see some people kind of come out with signs. We cannot show you those signs, and we can't show you those tags, obviously, because of the language that is used. But you heard Mayor Karen Bass. She is making it clear that this is not what they want to see in Los Angeles. You mentioned that large, sizable number, 4,000 troops, right? 4,000 people coming into the city to work here to protect the city. We have not seen evidence of that number of federal agents. I can tell you that right in front of the federal building, there are about maybe 6 or 7 National Guardsmen standing by. Their vehicles, their big armored vehicles are in front of the building. But outside of that, you're really not seeing a huge presence of law enforcement. Now, we are starting to see that they are blocking off the on and off ramps here in some streets. This is just happening as we speak. But for the most part, it has been pretty calm. And outside of the graffiti, it doesn't necessarily look like anything major has happened in Los Angeles at the moment.
Now, have you had a chance to talk to any L.A. residents? How are they responding to the news that the president is mobilizing members of the Marines in addition to those 4,000 National Guards troops that you were mentioning?
Well, I think people are just concerned in general about this situation that's unfolding. I think a lot of Angelenos that are not also right here in front of the building, I think they're quite frankly frustrated, right? Because they're saying just how large the city is. When you talk about L.A. County, we're talking about millions of people. The population of L.A. County is larger than a lot of states. And so I think people are frustrated that there is this narrative that all of Los Angeles is in chaos. All of Los Angeles is seeing this haywire, and these clashes between protesters and law enforcement agents, they're happening in very small pockets of the city. Mostly they've been right in front of this building, but as you can see for now, there is not anything happening at the moment.
Yeah, a very important point to make. Elise Preston on the ground reporting for us. Elise, thank you. All right, I want to turn now to CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion, who is traveling with the president at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Nikole, good to see you. You know, the White House has already said that these deployments are to protect federal buildings and personnel. What more do we know about the extent to which these Marines are expected to operate on the ground in Los Angeles?
Yeah, well, what we know is that, again, a group of Marines has arrived in the Los Angeles area. According to a defense official, some 700 Marines were deployed as part of this. But look, you know, their movements and their duties are largely protection-based, if you will. That is something that the defense secretary emphasized on Capitol Hill earlier today, saying that the primary duty, not only of the Marines and the National Guard, were simply to make sure that ICE, which is a federal agency, is able to carry out its duties with respect to some of these ongoing raids and to ensure their protection. So that's primarily why he explained to members of Congress that these various units were being deployed.
Nikole, we've heard the president flirting with the idea of implementing the Insurrection Act, I should say. From your take, how realistic is it? Does he mean that he is going to do that?
Well, I think you have to take the president at his word for now. You know, obviously, he's kind of walking a fine line here in terms of, at times, describing some of these protesters as insurrectionists or paid agitators, which we don't know whether they are or not. And at other times, obviously, from a legal standpoint, he hasn't gone so far as to invoke that Insurrection Act. You know, when he was asked about that a short time ago at the White House, he simply just said, we'll have to see. And we know that the White House has been closely monitoring the developments in Los Angeles over the last couple of days. And so that is why certainly we saw the escalation in terms of deploying the military. But whether or not he will take that further step of invoking the Insurrection Act remains to be seen.
Obviously, Nikole, you are on the opposite side of the country from where all this activity is taking place. You are at Fort Bragg today. What's on the agenda for the president while he's there?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting juxtaposition in terms of the different show of force in terms of the military. Obviously, we know the Army is marking its 250th anniversary, and so that will culminate at the end of this week with a big military parade in the nation's capital. And so they're kind of kicking things off here, if you will, kind of a pre-show here at Fort Bragg, where the president will be joined with Secretary Hegseth and other officials, basically to, you know, speak to the troops, to observe some of the military readiness in terms of the equipment that is here at this base, and kind of provide a, you know, booster to the troops here, a morale booster, if you will. So we've already heard from the Secretary of the Army, but again, this is all going to culminate with that big parade in D.C. at the end of the week.
All right, Nikole Killion, we appreciate it. Thank you.